guys, welcome back to Relationship, Romance, and Propaganda Podcast. We are the sexiest relationship podcast on the planet, on iHeart, on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe at ISENT Group Digital and catch us wherever you get your podcasts. We are a podcast for our new listeners that covers everything relationship. Sometimes we get raunchy, sometimes we keep it real, sometimes we keep it PG.
Sometimes we get spiritual.
Hey, sometimes we get spiritual. We have it all. So check into some of our shows if you're new.
Today we're getting psychological.
Yeah, today we're going to get a little psychological, and we are going to be talking about what's your attachment type, secure, anxious, or avoidant. We tell the truth. You know, our slogan is we expose the truth and broadcast the lies, because I think when it comes to relationships, that's what you need to do. I am a film director. You can look me up whenever you can. Rachel is an author, actress. These are her books, Love Bites and Sound Bites, a rock and roll love story. You know, and you can get these on Amazon, on Google. She's a terrific author, you know, and an actress, and she's a podcaster, as you can see. And as you can hear. So yeah, we've been having some fun, you know, starting off 2020. You know, I met someone that broke up, and she met people, and she's having a good time, and now I'm just chilling again, and you know what I'm saying?
And I met someone.
Right. And such is life, you know? So I'm gonna let Rachel jump it off, and we're gonna talk about what's your attachment type, secure, anxious, and avoidant.
Ooh, yeah.
Sorry guys, I'm getting over the flu. Just some remnants of it.
Gonna get into it. So a friend of mine, or a few friends of mine, have read this book, and I'm sure a lot of you have read this book because it's like a huge bestseller. So it's called Attached. It's by an author. His name's Amir Levine, and it talks about how there are 3 types of attachment styles. So there is secure, anxious, and avoidance. And what it goes into is, you know, each type. And it actually goes back to how you detached from your parent as a child. And it's the same way that you treat your partners as an adult, how you attach to them.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. It was fascinating. I read it recently, and a friend of mine actually said, you know, you guys should talk about this on your podcast. And I said, oh, that's a great idea, because so many of my friends have read this book. And so I read it recently, and it was fascinating. And I had this like brain moment of, oh my God, I date all avoidants. And I'm not an avoidant, like abort mission. So, you know, it's...
So let's talk about each one. And what I have to say is, I have a 15-year-old daughter. She just turned 15. And we actually read about attachment parenting before we had her.
Okay.
So I'm really interested to hear what this is about. Then I'll explain what attachment parenting is.
Okay.
And what we did and how we did that and how it shaped who she is right now.
Okay.
So this will be interesting.
And I'll tell you about, because they go into in the book how each type, basically when the parents, like let's say the parent leaves them alone. Yeah. How each type reacts. And it's
let's
interesting.
Get into it. Let's have some fun. So which one do you want to talk about first?
I'll just briefly outline each of them.
Okay, cool.
And then we can go into it. So they say, and this surprised me, about 50% of people are secure. That's a higher number than I thought.
That's pretty interesting.
I thought like half of us were going to be messed up, more than half. But now actually about 50% are secure. So secure is just you're comfortable with your relationship. You don't obsess about it. You don't obsess about where it's going.
Okay.
People who have a secure attachment type, they're reliable. They're consistent. They don't play games.
Sounds like me.
Sounds like you. They will make decisions with you. They're flexible, and they're very good at communicating.
Sounds like me.
Yeah. So they don't play games. They communicate what they want in a relationship.
Yep.
If that person doesn't give it to them and they recognize that, they'll cut them off.
Right.
Which that's, as we talked about, that's what I'm bad at.
Right. Cutting it off.
And this book was kind of an eye opener, because I was like, that's what I need to do to stop this cycle of getting into relationships with avoidance.
Okay.
Is I need to recognize that and cut it.
Right.
You know, because that's healthy. Anxious people, they crave intimacy, but they have a lot of insecurities about where the relationship is going. Okay. So it's interesting because they actually talks about how anxious people will date avoidance a lot of the time. And I'll get into that. But
Okay.
so they have a lot of insecurities, but they'll blame themselves. You know, if the person pulls away, they think it's something that they did. Instead of like blaming the other person, like, oh, you're an avoidant.
Right.
They blame themselves. Yeah.
Okay.
They will play games. So if they feel you pulling away, they're the type that will call you a bunch of times, or they'll try to make you jealous. You know, they'll be posting pictures online with somebody else. They play those games, which all that's doing is it's just going to keep the avoidant guy or girl around for longer and ultimately
it'll be a demise. Yeah, anyway.
Right.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
And they're the type that like they get really jealous and they will give up everything for their partner and really like they obsess about the relationship. And it's interesting because the book starts out talking about this woman, because sometimes people surprise you that are anxious. Like it's people you wouldn't think were. So they will they talk about this woman who is very confident, very successful, but she was dating a guy who was avoidant and she would become very anxious. She would obsess about it. She would like give up everything, you know, drop all her plans for this guy. And they were really surprised because she's such a confident person.
Right.
So have you ever, like, I mean, I'm sure you have, you know, you've known the guy or the girl that like gives up everything when they're dating somebody. You know what I mean? It's like that person like comes before anything.
My ex, the one I just ran into, the dentist.
Yeah.
Insecure.
Yeah. It's like that because I've known those. I mean,
it's because her dad, he was in the war.
Okay.
And he left when she was 4 years old.
She has attachment issues.
Yep. And came back when she was 14.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah, that and there's a quiz you can take online to find out which one you are. And then, so before I talk about avoidance, I'll just say real quick, I actually tested that I'm secure, but I am a little anxious. Like from 1 to 7, I was almost a 4. Because,
on the anxious side. Okay.
But it's only when I'm not secure in a relationship if it's new.
You want to know, like you want to make sure
I get anxious. Yeah. So, but that would surprise you, right? Because I seem very secure. I seem very confident. But I have that.
It did surprise me. We were talking about it last show. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I have like, I go a little cuckoo. I'm not a 7 on the anxious scale, but I was like almost a 4. Yeah. I have that in me. Because this guy that I just started dating, quick story, you know, leading up to when we were going to meet, he was texting me every day. We meet, we have this great date. We spend the night. The next day he was going to Maine. Unbeknownst to me, there's no cell service in Maine and he was redoing his house. So he also had no internet. So he did not tell me he was going off the grid for like a week.
Okay.
I went crazy because, you know, I'm like, what? We had this great date. This guy was so into me. He's been texting me every day and then disappears. What am I thinking? I'm thinking he's not into me, right? Maybe he's a player. Maybe he was just trying to get some.
Yeah, you're thinking all that stuff, yeah.
I was stalking my phone. I'm trying to... this is what I do when I get crazy. If he goes quiet, I go on Instagram to see when he was last active. I do that. And then after 3 days, he finally was out of his house skiing and texted me. And he was like, hey, I just want to send you a text while I have cell service. And I was like... Not so I do like once I'm in a relationship and I'm secure, I don't do that, but I do get anxious in the beginning. Totally. Yeah. I also am attracted to avoidance, and it sounds like you might be too sometimes. So avoidance are uncomfortable when things become too close, because they feel like you're going to take away their independence.
Yeah.
So they cannot communicate. They cannot deal with conflict. So they will not tell you if they're upset. They'll get silent. They'll go home. They will find flaws and have unrealistic expectations. So, you know, if someone is like, let's say there's a guy who is like, oh, I'm just,
or girl.
Yeah. I'm just an example. Because the example they gave in the book was a guy.
Yeah.
And they said, you know, if he's like, oh, I'm looking for my dream girl, but I know she's out there. They create these unrealistic expectations. So what they'll do is when they become too close to someone, they'll start finding flaws.
Yeah.
And it's stupid stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't like the way she clips her toenails. I'm paraphrasing, but
yeah.
they'll find flaws
Yeah.
to push you away.
Yeah.
To create excuses.
Or I don't like the way that you want me to reply to your text.
Right.
Right.
Right. So they'll find, and all that is, it's not anything to do with you. All that is
nothing at all to do with you.
Is that's their attachment style. They are afraid of intimacy. So when things get too close, they'll push you away. And then sometimes they're like, oh yeah, but I know my person's out there. They're going to have X, Y, Z. That person doesn't exist.
Right.
It's basically, they don't understand that they're avoidance.
Yep.
They'll send you mixed signals, hot colds.
Yep.
They'll distance themselves, and and this is funny. This struck to me with my ex. They'll make decisions without you. He bought a house when we were dating and didn't tell me. And I was like, cool. So we have no future. Because if we had a future, I would have looked at that house with you.
Yeah,
you would have seen if I liked it too, And they create these rigid rules that you have to follow. So he would do this, it's like, I had to sleep in a different room when his kids were there. Because we weren't married. And I'm like, no.
What?
No.
You don't explain things to your kids like, hey, this is what's.
That's a big deal to me. Like, unless we're married, I don't want to do that. It has nothing to do with being married or your values. It has to do with you pushing me away.
Yeah.
And that,
absolutely.
and now
I agree.
Now looking back, I realized that at the time, I was just upset all the time. Because I always felt like you're shutting me out.
Yeah.
You're not letting me in. And now I realize all these tactics, because, I was saying on the last episode, month 3, he was like, I'm in love with you. Month 4, he was like, I don't know if I can do this. And he started making excuses. Oh, you like, you stay up late. You don't like to wake up early, and I have kids. I'm like, you don't want to date me because I sleep in later than you.
Right.
Like,
what's that to do with anything?
Stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And he had these rules that I had to sleep in a different room. And I, now looking back and reading this book, I'm like, all that is he was avoidant and didn't, was afraid of getting too close to somebody. So he would make excuses and push me away and create these boundaries and these unrealistic expectations and rules. Yeah. So that's the overview of those 3.
Of those 3.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's sink into them now though.
Okay.
Like each one. I mean, and and if I can interject real quick before you go into it, the avoidant thing rings very true, and and everyone that I can relate it to just happens to be a Capricorn.
No, mine too.
Yeah,
Shocking.
the one Capricorn that. Now, well, with that said, would you say is in this case it's just a zodiac thing or a parenting thing?
No, it's a parenting thing, because they actually go into, and this was really, it was interesting. What they do is they go into they've done tests on children to see how they react when their parents out of the room. So I'm going to ask you what you think of this, because they didn't really go into why children react this way, and I don't know if they know. Maybe it was some pages I missed. So they tested children, how they react when their parent leaves the room and leaves them alone with strangers. Secure children, they'll be distressed when the parent leaves the room, but as soon as the parent comes back, they're okay, they're fine, they're over it. My parents here, they're happy again. Anxious kids will flip out, also become distressed, but when the parent comes back, even though they're happy, they still will be angry for a long time. It's like they're not like forgiving the parent for leaving them. They have that they emotionally distraught. This is the really interesting thing. Avoidance act like nothing happened. So they don't get distressed when the parent leaves. When the parent comes back, they act like nothing's fine. But when they tested their heart rate was just as elevated.
So
as
they
the other
still,
ones.
But when it comes to relationships, though, if you read about Capricorns, they all do this avoidant thing. You know what I'm saying?
And they can't communicate. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's why I always say the Capricorns date each other, because basically the purpose of this.
My whole point is with the Capricorns, maybe it doesn't have to do with their parents. Oh, we're over there. Thanks. You know what I'm trying to say?
Some people.
Because if you read about Capricorns, they all do this.
They do. Yeah.
Every single one of them.
Could be other factors too. I know.
You know what I'm trying to say? So I think with Caps, It may have to do with their
Well,
zodiac. And my daughter's a Capricorn, and
this
she
is what I
was raised with attachment parenting, which I'll explain.
Okay.
But what I wanted to say is that every single Capricorn I've dated have done this. It's so funny. This first Capricorn I dated, Lish, her friends and her brother told me, Imani, none of her relationships have ever lasted past 3 months.
Whose?
This Capricorn that I dated before.
Oh.
They said you were the only one that's ever let past 3 months, and we are absolutely shocked.
Yeah.
And it went 8 months, and one day she just came over, broke up with me, started bawling, crying, and walked out.
Yeah.
That's the last time I've ever seen her or talked to her. Then 30 days later, she called me back,
right,
wanting to explain something. I said, Lish, honestly,
yeah,
I don't really care what you have to say.
Right, yeah.
I said, I'm over it. And she started crying again and hung up. I haven't talked to her since. Mm-hmm. This was back in 2012.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. 2012, 2011. Yeah.
Well, this is what
it's unbelievable. Hold on. Then the second one did the exact same thing. And they told me, they said, dude, she's never been in love before. I think you were the first one that got past 3 months.
Yeah.
Then my other Capricorn, the one I told you about, and me and her are still friends.
Yeah.
We met on the app. We started hanging out. We went for it. Then all of a sudden, she backed off too. And then a month or two later, she hit me back. That's what I was going to ask you.
Why do you think? Because, why do you think certain children act that way? Because I don't think it's anything the parents are doing, right? Because all the parents, they're leaving their kid and they're seeing how they react.
Yeah.
Why, like, maybe are we just born that way? Like, are avoidants just born that way? That they're like, okay, my parent left, even though I'm terrified, I'm going to pretend I'm not, right?
Maybe with those kids, whether, and I don't want to confuse the two, whether they're Capricorns or not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, maybe people are just born, like, maybe if you are a Capricorn, you're born with that in you.
Right, if you're a Capricorn.
So if your parent leaves, it doesn't matter how they're raising you, you have that in you where you're like, all right, I'm just going to pretend I'm fine, even though I'm not fine. You know what I mean? Like, is it your parents or are you born that way?
I think when it comes to Capricorn, it's more of the zodiac. And I'm going to explain why. I'm going to explain why. Yeah, because so when it comes to my daughter, we did the whole attachment parenting thing because we learned through studies, it had been studied for decades with scientists and parents, that if you rear a child with attachment parenting, they end up far more confident and successful in life after.
Correct.
And what attachment parenting is that my ex-wife breastfed until Layla was, past 2 years old. We never got a crib for her. She always slept with us until she was ready to get out of the bed.
Okay.
So basically, you keep them close. And if you read about it, we read about it before she was born, it's said that when you leave an infant, they don't stop crying because they're okay. They stop because they know you're not going to come back.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Okay.
So we did attachment parenting because all the success stories were unbelievable.
Okay.
And we see that now in our daughter, how confident she is because we kept her close when we were supposed to.
Got it.
And she gained that confidence to go out on her own.
So maybe
see what I'm saying?
So maybe people that are anxious, maybe they were the kids that were left in the crib.
Left in the crib.
You know?
Yep.
Like they're afraid you're not coming back.
Yep.
Or I think if you have parents that are maybe in and out of your life, you can have that. If you have abandonment, because I have a friend.
And see, this was interesting. Hold on, I'm sorry, audience, about to cut you. And this was interesting. Even though Layla is the way she is, she still has all the Capricorn traits in a relationship.
Right.
See what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
She's still cold. She could love you to death, be in love with you, and then when you go too far and she thinks it's too.
Right.
It's over.
Yeah.
You see, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Well, that's why I'm saying, do you think it's parenting or do you think people can be born that way? So it sounds like she was born, with that in her.
She was born the true Capricorn, but she still was held close and
Okay.
given that confidence
Yeah.
outside of a relationship.
Right.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. So I have a friend, and she doesn't listen to this, so I can talk about it. But she had a parent who died when she was very young, and she is super anxious. I mean, like bonkers. And I'm like, it's going back to that because she never properly detached from her mom. So when she dates, she will text me a million. Like if she texts a guy and they're supposed to meet up and he doesn't write back, she was blowing up my phone yesterday. I texted him to see if we were still meeting up tonight. He hasn't written back. I'm like, okay, dude, first of all, he told you yesterday he was sick. Why are you following up with him already? If he wants to if he's feeling better to meet up with you, he'll text you.
Yeah.
And second of all, it's been an hour. Maybe he's sleeping. Maybe he's at work. You know, but it's like, but she does this with every guy. She gets super anxious. And like, and I've done it, but it's within reason. It's like this guy, if we're talking every day, then you disappear for a week and we had a great date, then I'm going to be anxious. Cause then I'm like, what's up? I thought we had a good time.
Exactly.
But she does it with every single guy because she's so anxious because she never had, you know, so it's almost like that abandonment issues, you know, like you're afraid everyone is going to leave you. Cause I remember as a kid, and my mom was like, I think all kids do this, but I don't know. You can tell me, you're a parent. As a kid, I was so attached to my mom that sometimes when she would drop me off at school, I wouldn't get out of the car and I would flip out, screaming, crying to the point that she would just take me home. Like, I mean, and I remember she was going to nursing school. I was probably like 5 or 6. And she would have to go at night.
I'd love to see pictures of her at 5 or 6.
Oh, I was cute. I'll show you. In my Catholic school uniform. And I would flip out again when she was going to school at night.
Yeah.
And I would block the door, you know, like, you can't leave. Because I was so attached to my mom. But my mom was like,
did you have your own crib and all that? Did you not sleep with them and all that?
I don't know.
Interesting to ask her.
I probably slept with her. Because I was the oldest.
Yeah.
But she did leave me as a kid when she would go to work with my grandmother. So I had a really good relationship with my grandmother too. So I was okay with my grandmother. But yeah, like if I had to go to school or something, it's like I just wanted to be with my mom all the time. Like she thought that was normal and all kids did that. And I was like, I don't know. I felt like I had kind of an unhealthy attachment to her. And I don't know where that came from.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, you should ask her and see if when you were an infant and when you were born, if they put you in a crib on your own and did they just leave you and let you cry, you should ask her.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised what you'll find.
I know. That's interesting.
You know what I mean?
So another interesting thing is they said so 50% of the population is secure. About less than 25% are anxious, less than 25% are avoidant, and there's a small percentage that are actually anxious avoidant.
Okay.
Which is interesting. I don't know how it's almost like I want to be close, but I'm not going to let you be too close. It's very conflicting. But they said that anxious people will often date avoidance because it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy where you're proving yourself right. Essentially, like, you know, avoidance can be like, oh, yep, see, I knew it. This person's going to try to take away my independence. Yeah. And anxious people are going to be like, yep, I knew it. No one wants me. It's weird. It's like this weird self-fulfilling prophecy of this hamster wheel. And another interesting thing that they said was that you can change your attachment style. 1 in 4 people changes their attachment style every 4 years.
Interesting.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. Life experience?
Yeah.
You know, or relationship experience?
Yeah, maybe just learning, right? Like from your last, like, because I feel like now that I know this, like now that I know, oh my God, I do date avoidance and I'm attracted to them. I feel like I'll be more coherent of it now going into dating now. Like if I see those red flags.
Yeah. And see, you look at what you said, how you reacted when you were young, when you were little.
Right.
You know, that plays into it too for some reason.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I know. I don't know.
You have me thinking, you know, that's so interesting.
Yeah. So what they say basically is you need to find someone with intimacy needs that are similar to your own.
To yours. Right.
Because basically mismatched attachment styles. So it can lead to a great deal of unhappiness, even to couples who love each other greatly.
Yeah.
So they said.
So I was secure and she was avoidant, my most recent relationship.
Totally.
So that's why
So
it
she
didn't
needs
work.
another avoidant.
She needs another avoidant.
Because,
Yeah.
yes, because the thing is, and it's kind of a sad way of being together, right? Like,
Yeah.
so basically neither of you are going to talk about anything,
Right.
you know?
You want to know what's funny about you saying that?
Mm.
I had a conversation with her a week before we broke up. And you know what I said? This is so interesting. That what I love about this podcast, like I said, it could be therapy. I literally said, if I communicated the way you did, we wouldn't get anywhere. I literally said that to her.
Yep.
I said we wouldn't get anywhere.
said that
I was like, you have to create the relationship.
Yeah, I think I said this to my ex.
And I said, if I communicated like you, we wouldn't get anywhere.
Totally.
Well,
Well,
so
well,
funny
all you're doing is
that.
you're sweeping stuff under the rug, or you're getting into the weird relationship like my mom and her husband, where you're emailing each other from the other room.
Right.
Imani, one time, and I will
crazy.
never forget it. My ex called me. It was probably like 10 in the morning. He used to call me on his way to work, and he said, I want to take my kids to this thing this weekend, but we have to leave at like 6 I want to leave at like 6 in the morning. And I said, absolutely not. Because I was in the middle of a book release, and I'll write till like 2 in the morning.
Right.
Like nighttime, that's my creative time.
Right.
And there's been studies on it, like creative people are night people.
Yeah.
He didn't get it. And I was like, I'm sorry, but that doesn't work for me. I'm in the middle of a deadline, and I'm going to be writing all night. I'm not going to go on 4 hours of sleep. I'm going to be miserable. And we didn't have to leave at 6. Like we could have gone any time. It's just when he wanted to go, the rigid rules, right?
Yeah.
So I said, I'm not going to go that early. So he didn't say anything. He comes over that night, doesn't say anything. We watch a whole movie. After the movie is over, he says, I'm going to go home now because I'm upset with you.
Oh my God, I'm upset with you
So
about
what are you upset with me about?
Yeah.
He said, our conversation this morning. I'm like, 12 hours have gone by and you've been stewing over this for 12 hours. And you're just bringing it up now.
Yeah.
And he goes, and he wouldn't stay over. He went home. Because he goes, I need to just think about it and think if I'm overreacting, or if I'm really justified in being upset.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what happened this morning that you're upset about? And why didn't you bring it up this morning? Or like at any point during the day? Like we just watched a 2-hour movie, so you've been stewing over this during the whole movie? That's scary to me. It's like crazy. That you can be upset about something and you don't bring it up. And they say avoidance, they don't know how to communicate.
Oh yeah.
And also anxious people are afraid to communicate their feelings. They think think you're a mind reader. They think you're going to guess. So it's like those crazy girls who will be like, he should know I'm upset. Well, no, he's not a mind reader. You got to tell him.
You got to say it. You got to communicate.
But they're afraid if they communicate that you're going to run and be like, oh, she's crazy, and run for the hills. And then they're going to be like, oh, it's all my fault. I ruined everything. But secure people, they communicate what they want. They don't play games.
Right.
It's like, this is what I want. If you don't give it to them, they're out. We're not a match.
Right.
And it's very straightforward. And they recognize what they want and they'll cut it off if they're not getting it, which I think is really healthy. And the more I was reading this, I was like, oh my God, this is like so smart. Because, and I said in the last one I was going to get into this. When you play games, all you're going to do, like if someone's avoidant, right, and they're afraid of intimacy, so you pull back and then they're interested again. And then they start to get disinterested, so then you pull away. That's not who you are, right?
What you were talking about, yeah.
So if you don't stay true to who you are, you're going to attract the wrong type of people. Like if you play these games, you're going to postpone the inevitable. You're not going to end up with that person. And if you do, you're not going to be happy.
Right. You won't be happy. Yeah.
That's what they say.
Because they're not they're not meeting you on your level.
What you need, right? And anxious people need other anxious people. Maybe you need, because my friend who's anxious, I think she needs someone who's like going to be in constant communication with her, who also has that anxiety about like, you're not going to leave me. You're not going to leave me. Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because she's texting with this guy now who is actually, I think, more anxious than she is. And he's blowing up her phone. And And to the point that she doesn't want to go out with him. And I said, I think you should go out with him.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my God, no. Like if I don't respond, he's like, hello, are you on another date? And I'm like,
that's perfect for you.
no, I can't like say it like that. But in a nice way,
I said, be like, that's perfect for you.
But I said, you know what? But I said, you like to text a lot too. I think he's probably really, because I'll be honest, and I hope my guy doesn't ever listen to this. I almost didn't even go out with the guy that I'm dating because he started doing that, like not that excessive at all.
Right. Just, yeah.
But a week. So basically it's a funny story. So remember how I told you I Bumble when I travel. So he lives in my dad's town on the East Coast. He saw me on Bumble over the summer. And it's so funny too, to think about, like, cause I know you're into like spirituality, like what I was only at my dad's for one night where I was on my way to my sister's wedding. What would have happened if my dad didn't move to Connecticut? He just randomly picked Connecticut. He's been in Florida his whole life. They just randomly chose that random place. And it's just so funny to think about, like, you know, what if they hadn't moved there? And you know, like what if this works out with this guy and it's and the underlying is like, because my dad moved there. It's so strange. So he saw me on Bumble, started following me on Instagram. But he didn't say anything for like 2 months. But I saw him, and it's funny because he's private. I must have really liked his tiny avatar. For some reason, I was like, oh yeah, he looks cute. And I followed him back, and I never do that.
Right.
And I was like, oh, he looks like my type. You know, he's cute, whatever. 2 months go by, I didn't say. And finally, when he messaged me, when we did the astrology podcast, because he goes, what about Aries? Because it was part 2. Right. And I was like, that was last week. But I was like, finally, he said something.
That's so funny.
So I said, do you live in Connecticut? He goes, yeah. And I said, oh, are you near my dad? And he goes, yeah. So then I was like, oh, okay, he saw me on Bumble. That's how he found me. So he would text me here and there, like every couple of weeks. But because I said I'm going to be on the East Coast for the holidays. So let's meet up. Then this was a few months away. Once I landed and he knew we were going to meet up, it was Imani. He was kind of driving me crazy with the text because he wasn't like, I almost didn't even go out. I know, I'm so mean. I'm so happy I did. But he was like, it wasn't even like text like, hey, so what do you want to do when we meet up? What time works for you? Nothing about me or us meeting up. It was like, so I just went food shopping. And I'm like, cool. What do I say to that? Like, I swear to God, one day he was like, I really wish it would snow. And I was like,
he would just say random stuff like that?
Random stuff. And I was like,
That's weird.
I know. And to my sister, I was like, this guy's just texting me random stuff. He's not like, nothing about me. How am I? Or when do you want to meet up? What do you want to do? And she's like, do you even want to go out with him? And I was like, I don't know. I almost wasn't even going to go. And my older sister, she goes, he's just grasping because he's probably excited to meet you and he doesn't know what to talk to you about. Right.
He just doesn't know how to communicate.
Yeah. So she was like, give him a chance. And I go, okay. And we even talked on the phone before we met up. And I still was like, I don't know. Yeah. As soon as he walked in and I was like, yep, I'm into it. Like he gave me this big hug, kiss on the cheek. As soon as we started talking, I was like, I'm so into him. Yeah. But so it surprises you because sometimes you don't know from text or even the phone. Yeah. I'm usually a good gauge on the phone. I feel like I'm talking to a different person on the phone.
When you're in person.
So going back to the anxiousness, that's why I said to my friend, because this guy's blowing up her phone and I'm like, I think this guy's perfect for her. Yeah. Because they're going to be two anxious people who are going to blow up each other's phone all day. Yep. I think she needs that. Yeah. I think avoidants need to not talk about anything. If that's how you want to live your life. That's the type of relationship they want. I hate to say it, but that's not you. You know what I mean? That's not
definitely
me.
Not. Yeah.
You can't be with an avoidant.
Right.
Imagine 12 hours later, your girlfriend's like, yeah, I'm mad at you about something that happened this morning. Bye. We're not going to talk about it.
Yeah. Or a day or two later and go, right. Hey, this kind of annoyed me, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, did that happen?
And I'm like, a day or two later? Man,
why didn't you tell me that like 2 days ago?
That simple? Like, why didn't you just say that? Like when it happened, it was, you know what I mean? It was simple. It was so simple. I can't even remember what it was.
So
And I was like, okay, that's easy fix.
yeah.
All right.
So they say in this book, like even couples who are married who
mm-hmm,
love each other greatly, because I mean, we talked about this when we talked about Does Love Conquer All, right?
mm-hmm,
Like my ex and I loved each other a lot. That was not the issue. The issue when it comes down to it is I'm pretty secure and he's an avoidant.
right.
It's never going to work for me. It's never going to work for
for
you.
me, yeah.
I want to talk about issues, right? Like,
Right. I wanna tackle it
yeah,
straight up
because
in the moment.
I get like that because that actually makes me anxious when you're with an avoidant and it's like I get that nervous stomach ache when I feel you pulling away,
mm-hmm,
or it's like I love you but I feel like I'm losing you. I do.
mm-hmm.
I get it. It
Yeah.
makes me anxious.
That's interesting.
I don't like that.
That's very true. That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they said at the end of it, and I wrote this down because I wanted to read it out loud. A relationship should make you feel confident and give you peace of mind.
Right.
And playing games is only going to prevent you from being happy in the long run.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's true. And they did say, which made me feel better, that it is normal to like obsess about someone in the beginning and think about them all the time. And I was like,
yeah, of course. When you first,
right.
Yeah,
Because I was, I'm reading this.
Everyone does that. Yeah.
But I read this book after my first date with this guy when I was like so into him and then he disappeared for a couple of days. And because I'm reading this going, oh no, am I anxious?
Mm-hmm.
But then they did say it's normal when you first start dating somebody, you're going to think about them all the time. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. It's normal.
Yeah, of course it's normal.
Not too crazy.
Yeah, nah, I wouldn't say that.
But I think if someone makes you feel that way, because I think you can be secure, but someone can make you feel anxious. You know what I mean?
by their actions and what they're doing.
Did you ever
and stuff
feel
like that.
anxious when you were with an avoidant? Did you start to feel a little anxious?
Towards the end, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because I was like,
because you feel the distance.
yeah, I was like, something's going on,
Something's
and it's funny. I even said, hey, you told me about how your ex was, and I didn't be the opposite, trying to be agreeable. I'm not an agreeable person. This is just who I am.
Right.
That's what I said. I was like, this is just who I am.
Yeah.
I happen to be the opposite of what you said you didn't want. That what you had with your ex. But again, but again, it doesn't. Yeah. So it's interesting. To hear all this stuff and be able to relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and what I said to you about that, because sometimes people will tell you they don't want something, but that's exactly what they want.
What they actually want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, you said that her ex didn't treat her well and she didn't like that. But then I was like, well, how long did she stay with him? You treated her well. How long did she stay with you?
Right. Exactly.
How long was she with her ex? 8 years or something?
Nah, 4 or 5, I
okay,
think.
but still.
Something like that.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
So
that is a long time.
So it's like people may tell you something,
mm-hmm.
but you got to read between the lines, right? Because I'm like, okay, well, she didn't like how he treated her. She stayed with him for 5 years. Clearly she did.
Right.
There's something
right, until
there.
something happened.
Well, and it's so funny because, and it's like the guys on dating apps who are like, I don't want crazy girls. I don't want crazy girls. I'm like, you want a crazy girl. Clearly.
Right. Clearly you want a crazy girl.
Clearly you attract all crazy girls because that you're putting that out there. If you didn't attract crazy girls, that wouldn't even be a factor.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? You wouldn't even think to write that. So if you're putting that out there, that's what you're going to attract.
Right.
So I think sometimes people say they don't want something.
But they actually do want that.
But
and you know what?
And
I just want to say respectfully, we're not naming names or anything like that. Again, we're not here to throw anyone under the bus, but it's part of my story too. So I have the right to talk about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want to make that clear. You know what I mean? No one's trying to throw anyone under the bus, or it's not even about that. But it's great to talk these things out and recognize the differences and where they go wrong and how they go wrong. I think it's great. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think everyone needs to just be conscious of when you're dating somebody or when you're starting to, before you become too attached.
And I've never heard it broken down like this before, and it's so interesting,
isn't it?
Yeah. When you break it down these categories and you just specify and talk about it, because it's so true.
And it's funny because in the book they actually give you quizzes, and they'll be like, "What type is this guy?" And it's like, he's like, you know, oh, I was dating this girl, but then I didn't like that she did this, but I know there's the perfect woman out there for me. And they're like, at first you might think he's secure, but no, he's actually avoidant because he's making excuses once he got too close to her. Right. And then, you know, there's the confident woman who is like really, you know, worried about her relationship and hates being alone, because that's the other thing, is like anxious people can't be alone, like they're only happy when they're in relationships. You know, and so they give you all these different quizzes to try to figure out. So it's good because I think when you go into dating, you can you're able to pinpoint characteristics of people. You know, so I think I'm going to be on the lookout for that from now on. Like if we start to get close and then he pulls back,
so
I'm going to be on the lookout for that.
Yeah. So this was my ex who I had to put the restraining order against.
Okay. What was she?
Was anxious.
No, like zodiac wise.
Aries, which is a good match for me.
Oh, that's my new one.
But
I never had one before.
No, but that's a good match for both of us.
Yeah.
But she was anxious.
Yeah.
Super anxious.
Yeah.
Beautiful girl, man. Like model,
like,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Super.
But Aries are a
anxious.
lot. They're a lot. They have big personalities. Because I have a lot of Aries girlfriends too, and
and I had to end up putting a restraining order against her.
But that, you know, what's funny is that's normally why I never liked Aries guys, because they're a lot, like they were like too into me.
Yeah.
So my friend that is in the open marriage, I've never been with him. I never will. I'm just, you know, he's my friend. Like I don't think of him in that way, and he'll never quit. It's like, even the other day he sends me a text, he's like, I know we're gonna cross that line soon, I can feel it. And I'm like, it's been like 10 years.
Oh my God.
Buddy, it's never gonna happen, you know. But they don't quit, and I normally don't like that. Like that turns me off. Yeah. But it's funny, this new guy is an Aries, and Aries was the only sign I had never been with before.
If she was secure, we would still be together to this day.
Right.
That was the only problem we had.
But that's going to drive you bonkers.
Yeah. If she was secure, you mean?
No, if she's anxious.
Oh, I know. It drove me crazy. Yeah, I know. I had to put a restraining order against her.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I told you, yeah.
What'd she do?
Santa Monica courtroom, right there by 30 Promenade. The judge was like, oh, yeah, we stamping you. I swear to God, Rachel was crazy.
What did she do?
So when I hear all this stuff, I'm like, oh, yeah, she was Mrs. Anxious. Man,
what did she do? I want to hear.
It would take an hour to talk about
Summarize
the stuff that she did.
3 sentences, go.
I mean,
she like egg your car.
No. I mean, not even that. I mean, it all went bad.
Show up at your house.
Yeah. It all went bad when I realized she was jealous of the relationship, you know, me and my daughter had.
Yeah.
And when I realized it.
Oh, you told me about her.
Yeah, it was when I had to get rid of her, and when I tried to get rid of her, it went crazy.
You know what's so funny now that you're saying this? I'm glad you said this, because this just made me think of something that I wanted to say, and I almost would have forgot. I think this is probably why people change every 4 years. I think I'm different. I think I'm different attachment styles with different people. Because I was with a guy who was anxious and bought my ex in Boston, and I became avoidant. And I'm not normally that, but it was like the more he clung to me, the more I pulled away. Because I'm not, you know, but then with my recent
ex. But it's only if you're really not that interested, right?
I mean, I loved him. I moved in with him.
Okay, gotcha.
But as soon as like we moved in together and he became really needy, like basically he became more and more anxious as our relationship went on. So it made me become more and more avoidant. I mean, I'm not kidding, to the point that like when he wanted to talk about things, I was like, no, I'm going to bed. Because he drove me crazy. So that can happen too. I think other people can bring out different attachment styles to you. And then on the flip side of that, my recent ex, because he was avoidant, made me anxious. You know what I mean? So I think different people can bring out those sides of you. Yeah. You know, I think it's good to I'm just going to target some secure people from now on.
Yeah, exactly. but the problem is, how do you actually know? I mean, is it one of those things to where you're like, okay, if you start seeing the red and or yellow flags, you go, okay, this person is an avoidant.
Because
let me go the other way.
You know, like first
You know?
first sign. I think you start to see those signs about 3-4 months in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and you can agree with me, right? I think what were you guys
Mhm.
together? 3-4 months?
Almost 4.
Yeah,
Yeah. 3.5.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So with my recent ex, 3 months in, told me he loved me. 4 months in, was like he got distant, and I felt it in my gut, and I was like, "What's going on?" And that was when he started making excuses. I don't know.
Yeah.
You don't like to get up early. The stupid
Yeah.
stuff. I have kids.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is going anywhere. And it was the hot and colds.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think that's the first
Yeah.
telltale signs
Yeah.
that start showing.
You want to know what's interesting though about her is that she acknowledged it and said she would work on it. We talked about it and she acknowledged
But
it.
you should have to work at stuff
Yeah,
three
but
months in.
but
You know what I mean?
but I think that she realized that, hey, if I keep on this track, I'm probably gonna not end up
alone,
with
yeah.
anyone.
I thought my ex would end up alone.
She would actually acknowledge it and say she would work on it, which is why I didn't just cut it off.
Yeah.
One reason. The next reason is, again, it was too many things down to intricate, unbelievable details that we had in common.
Right.
It was too many serendipitous things that happened. It was too many.
Yeah.
To me, that's the only reason why I gave it a shot.
Right, of course.
Along with her going, I recognize what you're saying. I get it. And I'm going to work on these things.
Yeah.
And she even said, I'll probably never be all the way on that side.
Yeah.
But I'm recognizing that, yes, this is something that I need to
but you know
work on.
what?
So that's the only reason why I didn't just...
But it's not.
You know what I mean?
But it's not because
Yeah.
I think she just needs to be with somebody who's similar to her.
Oh, I agree.
You know?
I agree with you. Yeah, I'm agreeing
she
with you.
needs
But
to be with an
but
avoidant.
that's the only reason why I didn't, because I saw all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was too many other things that was right, and she was saying, "Hey, I'm gonna work on this," and I have to give it to her. She did, and she did work on it a lot, and she actually improved a lot. I have to admit that.
Yeah.
I have to admit that. If I'll be lying if I say otherwise. She did improve tremendously. But I think at the end of the day, I think at the end of the day,
that's not who she is.
At the core, that's not who she is. You took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So you always.
Yeah, bless her heart, man. I mean, it's all good.
I mean, it's we all just have. I mean, at the end of the day, we all have to stay true to ourselves.
Yeah.
And if you stay true to yourself, you're going to attract the right type of person who is compatible with you, who has your same attachment style, and it's going to be a happy, healthy relationship because it's going to be what you want, you know.
Right.
Same as zodiac stuff. I mean, it's
it's the same. Yeah.
You want to attract like your compatible signs. Yeah.
I mean, and even with the zodiac, if we could just delve in before we sign off. Even with that, you know, it's not the gospel, but in general terms, if you're with the right zodiac, it'll be easier than if you're with the wrong one.
Correct.
You know, and I was just telling someone the other day, I said, you know, Jay-Z and Beyonce are with worse matches, just so people know.
Sag and Virgo.
Yeah.
But you know
they're the worst match.
But you know what's funny is one of my best friends back home is a Sag.
Funny you will know that. Go ahead.
I do.
About Jay-Z and Beyonce. Yeah.
Like name a celebrity right now.
You know. Keep going.
I'll tell you what their birthday is.
Yeah. They are the worst match.
But they're not, because Sages, when I said this when we talked about it, I feel like they can go with any sign because they're just so flexible.
Yeah.
So one of my best friends back home is a Sag and she's married to a Virgo.
Yeah.
Yeah. It actually.
Yeah. My whole point was that even when it's your worst match, it works. I mean, I've heard of Tauruses and Aquariuses, which are the same worst match, go 20-something, 30 years. Yeah. So it's not an exact science.
But Aquariuses are pretty easygoing too.
We are very easygoing.
You guys can go with a lot of signs, and Sag can go with a lot of signs. Yeah. But most signs are not that flexible.
Not that flexible.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of like how easygoing you are.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be with Capricorns, yet I have dated a multitude of them.
Before we go, that's what I want to say real quick. Isn't it interesting how even though these are not supposed to be our matches, why do we always end up with the opposite though? Why do we end up
we don't end up with them.
Yeah, but I'm saying, why do we end up engaging
just for a limited time
and like trying to make that work? It's so interesting to me.
Because
I always say, why can't I meet a goddamn Libra? I have never in my entire life dated a Libra.
You will.
I would love to just see what that's like. That's supposed to be my
I've had a
best
bunch
match.
of Aquariuses.
That's supposed to be my best match, though.
Yeah, we're good.
I'm like, Libras, where are you?
Yeah.
I want to try this out. Like,
I used to say that about
never in my
Gemini
entire
guys, and then
life
I had a
met
couple
Libra.
of Gemini guys, and I went, nope. Okay.
It's so interesting.
I had to block a
Everything
Gemini guy today on Facebook.
Everything that's supposed to be my worst match is what I meet all the time.
Yeah.
Why did this go?
'cause
Hold on.
why?
Let me say something real quick. Why did after me and
Probably the reason they're single.
after me and my ex broke up?
Yeah.
Why did this girl hit me up on Facebook, bad as hell, with the exact same birthday?
Oh yeah.
I was like,
Why did I
click?
I know. See ya.
I was like, the same birthday,
Why-
the exact same day.
Why did I
Rich?
date 3 Capricorns in a row? I don't know. Well,
It's crazy.
you know what? So this is what I
We
think.
always attract what we're not supposed to be.
Not always. So, but this is what I'm going to say about that. I like Capricorns attract me in the beginning with the same reason this Aries guys attracted me, because they're go-getters and they go for it.
Yeah.
And they will pursue me because I like that. I want to be pursued. I'm not going to stalk you.
Yeah.
You got to ask me out. I want to hear from you every day, right? And
Yeah. Answer the door. See. Yeah.
so I want to hear from you every day.
Mm-hmm.
And Capricorn guys, I will say they're reliable and
Mm-hmm.
they're successful and they're go-getters. So they will call me every day. They will ask me on a date. They will make plans in advance. They're good for like the first 3 months. The problem is after the first 3 months, when things start to get close, then that's when the avoidance comes.
Yeah.
You know, so they win me in the beginning, and then by that point I'm in and I'm attached. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's the problem. It's like it lasts for so long. But what I should be doing, and maybe you too, is when I start to see those red flags after month 3,
Yeah.
and I know that they're an avoidant, that's when I should be cutting them
Yeah.
off and saying,
Yeah.
you know
Which is
what, this is
basically
what I
what
want. You're
would
not giving
happen.
it to me. Bye.
Yeah. Which is
Yeah.
basically
So
what
I need to
happened.
be better about that.
Yep. So
Yeah.
let's close it out. I don't know who that is,
Okay.
but that was a good show though.
Yeah.
That was really
Interesting.
good.
I think
Very
we should promote that one.
interesting.
I think that'll.
No, I will, because we didn't curse. Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't curse anything.
No, I
did we?
purposely didn't.
I will actually.
Yeah, because I think it's
I
a
will.
good topic. A lot of people read that book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will.
All right.
That's
our
awesome.
show.
Yeah. So, yeah, that one went. I want to talk about it some more, but I know we can't talk all day. Actually,
I think that was good.
I don't want to talk about it more. Anyway, guys,
covered.
that was what's your attachment type? Secure, anxious, avoidant. I know I learned something. I know it was therapeutic for me. I hope you listeners, I hope you learned something as well. It's Relationships, Romance, and Propaganda podcast with Imani, Shakur, and Rachel K. Burke. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, ISENT Group Digital, where we expose the truth and broadcast the lies every week. And we will see you next week. Peace.
Bye.
Mimosas without the juice.